thing my mother said when she found out I was getting a settlement wasn't, "Are you okay?" or "Thank God you're safe." It was, "How much?" I was sitting at my kitchen table, still in the same oversized hoodie I'd worn home from physical therapy, my right wrist in a brace. A stack of medical bills next to my coffee cup. My attorney had just emailed me the final number. I'd made the mistake of mentioning it during our Sunday call. $114,000, I said. There was a pause. Then I heard her breathe in slow the way she does when she's calculating something. "Well," she said, "that's a family matter." I didn't know what that meant yet. I would. My name is Vera. I'm 31 years old. I work as a dental hygienist in Columbus, Ohio, and up until about 14 months ago, I thought my family was just normal. Not perfect, but normal. The kind of family that argues about politics at Thanksgiving and texts each other memes, and occasionally shows up when things get hard. I was wrong about that last part. The accident happened on a Tuesday in February. Black ice on I-270, a pickup truck that ran a red light, and suddenly I was spinning into a guardrail at 40 miles an hour. I remember the sound more than anything, that specific crunch of metal that doesn't sound like anything else in the world. When the car stopped moving, I was upside down, hanging from my seatbelt, and my right hand was pinned against the door frame. The paramedics got me out. I had a fractured wrist that required 2 surgeries, a concussion, and soft tissue damage in my shoulder that still aches when the weather changes. The driver of the pickup had no insurance. Mine did. My attorney. Someone a co-worker recommended. A woman named Patricia Cho, who turned out to be the most important person in this entire story, took on my case and after nearly 8 months of back and forth, got me $114,000 to cover medical bills, lost wages, and pain and suffering. I paid Patricia's fee. I put most of the rest in a separate account I opened specifically for this purpose, at a bank my family didn't know about. That detail matters. Remember it. My brother Leland is 35. He's the kind of person who has always had a plan that's about 6 months away from changing everything. Before I was in an accident, his current plan was something involving a food truck and a franchise opportunity he'd found online. Before that, it was a real estate wholesaling course. Before that, sports memorabilia. He's never held a job longer than 2 years. He's charming in the way that works on people who don't know him well, and he has the specific ability to make our mother feel like every bad decision he makes is temporary, and every good decision I make is lucky. I say this not to be cruel. I say it because it's important for you to understand the dynamic before I tell you what happened at dinner. My parents live in Westerville, about 20 minutes from me. My father, Gerald. And I want to be precise here, because his role in this is complicated. Is a retired electrician who has spent 30 years doing whatever my mother says. Not because he's weak, but because he genuinely believes keeping peace is the same as being good. It isn't. I've learned that. I'm not sure he has yet. My mother's name is Sandra. She goes by Sandy. She runs a bookkeeping business out of their house, which means she understands money better than most people give her credit for. And she has never once in her life seen a dollar she didn't feel should be managed by someone else. Meaning her. 3 weeks after I got the settlement confirmation, my mother called to invite me to Sunday dinner. "Just us," she said. "The whole family." She said she wanted to celebrate. I should have known. I arrived at my parents' house at 5. Leland's truck was already in the driveway. His girlfriend, a woman I genuinely like, named Portia, was in the kitchen helping my mother. My father was watching football in the den. It looked like every other Sunday dinner I'd had in that house my entire life. We ate. My mother made pot roast, which is the meal she makes when she wants something. That's not me being dramatic. Pot roast is her specific gesture of manufactured warmth. When I was in high school and she wanted me to agree to something, it was always pot roast first. About 40 minutes in, after Leland had already refilled his wine twice, my mother pushed back from the table slightly and folded her hands the way she does when she's about to say something she's been rehearsing. "We need to talk about the money," she said. I put my fork down. "The settlement," she clarified, as if I didn't know what money she meant. $114,000 is a lot of money, Vera. That's not grocery money. That's generational. That's family. It's my money," I said. "From my accident, or my injuries." "Of course it is," my father said, and I felt a brief flicker of relief before my mother talked right over him. "Your wrist healed," she said. The doctor said you have full range of motion. You're working again. Meanwhile, Leland has a real opportunity here, something concrete, and your father and I have already looked at the numbers. You looked at numbers, I said. For my settlement? For the family, she said. Leland hadn't said anything yet. He was looking at his plate. Portia had gone very still. Then my mother reached into the chair beside her. She'd had a folder sitting there the whole time, I realized, tucked against the cushion where I wouldn't see it when I came in. And she slid it across the table toward me. It was a loan agreement, typed up, with my name on it, and Leland's name, and a line for my signature at the bottom. $70,000, with a repayment schedule that started in 3 years and assumed, based on no evidence whatsoever, that Leland's business would be profitable by then. You want me to loan my brother $70,000, I said. We want a family to invest in itself, my mother said. Vera. That was Leland, finally. He looked up at me. I know this isn't ideal timing, but this opportunity is real. I've done the research. The territory is available, the margins are there. Leland, I said, stop. You don't need all of it, my mother said. Her voice had shifted. Softer, but with something underneath it that wasn't soft at all. You have your job. You have your health back. Your brother has been struggling for years, and you have the chance to help him. What kind of sister doesn't help her family when she can? I looked at that folder. $70,000, more than half of what I received for being in a car accident, for 2 surgeries, for 8 months of physical therapy for the 6 weeks I couldn't work, and drained my savings to pay my rent. The kind of sister, I said, who was recording this conversation. I want to explain something about that because I know how it sounds. I didn't come to dinner planning to record anyone, but 3 days before Sunday my mother had called me twice, and my brother had called me once. And each of those calls had a specific texture, a pressure, an urgency that I recognized from years of experience. When I told Patricia what I was feeling, she didn't tell me what to do. She just reminded me that Ohio is a one-party consent state, which means I can legally record any conversation I'm part of without telling the other person. I put my phone in my cardigan pocket before I left my apartment. I pressed record in the car before I left my apartment. I pressed record in the car before I walked up their driveway. When I said those words at the table, I was recording this conversation. The room went absolutely silent. Then my mother laughed. A short, dismissive sound. That's not funny. I'm not joking, I said. I took my phone out and set it on the table. Still recording. I've been recording since I got here. Everything you just said. The folder, the loan agreement with my name already on it, all of it. My father said, Sandy, this is manipulation, my mother said. You're trying to manipulate this family. You slid a $70,000 loan agreement across the table and called it a celebration, I said. You told me my injury is healed as justification for taking my settlement money. You called this a family investment. I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. I didn't manipulate anything. I just listened. I stood up. I said goodnight to Portia, who looked at me with an expression I still think about. Something between relief and apology. I said goodnight to my father, who opened his mouth and closed it again. And I walked out. I want to be honest about the weeks that followed because they were not triumphant. They were exhausting and sad. And there were several nights I sat on my bathroom floor and cried in a way I hadn't since I was a kid. My mother called me 11 times in the first 3 days. My brother texted me paragraphs. My father called once, on a Wednesday evening, and said, Your mother is very hurt. Not, I'm sorry. Not, that was wrong. Just, your mother is very hurt. I forwarded everything to Patricia. Then, about 10 days after the dinner, I got a piece of certified mail. My mother had hired an attorney. She was filing a petition for a financial conservatorship over me. I had to look up what that meant. A conservatorship, sometimes called a guardianship of the estate, is a legal arrangement where a court appoints someone to manage another person's finances. Typically because that person is unable to manage their own affairs due to incapacity or disability. My mother's attorney had filed claiming that my concussion had left me with impaired judgment and that I was vulnerable to financial exploitation. She was asking to be appointed my conservator. She was trying to get legal control of my money by convincing a court I couldn't be trusted with it. I sat with that for a long time. My own mother. filing paperwork to have me declared financially incompetent, so she could give my settlement to my brother. Here's what my mother didn't know. 3 days after I received my settlement, before the Sunday dinner, before any of this, I had sat down with Patricia, and we had gone through every protective step available to me. Not because I knew exactly what my family was going to do, but because Patricia had asked me a question I didn't expect. Is there anyone in your life who might see this money as an opportunity? And I had been quiet for too long, and she had seen something in that silence. We moved the money. Not hidden. I'm not describing anything illegal. I moved it into a properly titled FDIC-insured account that had Patricia as my designated agent with clear documentation of purpose. I had my treating physicians provide letters, standard letters they wrote in minutes, confirming I had recovered fully from my concussion and showed no signs of cognitive impairment. I had those letters notarized. I had Patricia document, in writing, the entire trajectory of my case, my decision-making throughout, my financial literacy, my employment status. When the conservatorship petition landed, Patricia called me and she was so calm that I felt calm just listening to her voice. They have nothing, she said. A concussion that resolved 6 months ago and a family member who wanted her money. The court is going to see this for exactly what it is. She was right. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in Franklin County. I wore a gray blazer and brought every document Patricia had assembled. My mother arrived with her attorney, and my brother sat in the gallery behind her. My father was not there. I noticed that. I still think about that. My doctor testified by written declaration. Patricia presented the recording from the dinner, legally obtained, clearly audible, damning in the most ordinary way possible, which is the worst kind. Not dramatic villainy, just a mother at a dinner table with a folder she'd prepared in advance, telling her daughter that her healed wrist meant her money was available. The judge denied the petition. She didn't just deny it. She noted in her ruling that the petition appeared to be motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern for my welfare, and she ordered my mother to pay a portion of my legal fees. My mother didn't speak to me for 4 months after that. Neither did Leland. My father called me 2 weeks after the hearing. He didn't apologize directly. I want to be honest about that because I think people deserve accurate information, not the version where everything resolves cleanly. He said, I should have said something that night at dinner. I didn't. I'm sorry for that. It was small. It was also from him, enormous. We've had coffee 3 times since then. We don't talk about my mother when we meet. We talk about other things. His vegetable garden, my nephew's soccer games, a documentary series we've both been watching. It's not the relationship I wanted. It's the one that's possible right now. And I'm trying to be okay with that. Portia, my brother's girlfriend, texted me about a month after the hearing. She said, I'm sorry I didn't say anything at dinner. I should have. I told her she didn't owe me anything. She said, I know. I just needed to say it. I like her a lot. Whatever happens with Leland is his business. But I hope she's okay. The settlement money is still in that account. I've used some of it. My car needed to be replaced. I've been putting the maximum into my Roth IRA, and I paid off the last of my student loans, which felt like standing up straight for the first time in years. The rest I'm not touching until I have a clearer plan. Patricia suggested I talk to a fee-only financial advisor, which I did, and which I'd recommend to anyone in a similar situation because it turns out having someone explain compound interest in a way that's actually comprehensible changes how you think about everything. I'm not angry anymore. Or, I am, sometimes, in the specific way you're angry at something that's already over. I grieve the version of my family I thought I had. That's probably the truest thing I can tell you about the aftermath. It's not rage, it's grief. The dinner, the folder, the petition, those things clarified something for me that I think I already knew and had been refusing to see. That my role in that family was to be useful, to come through when called upon, to be the responsible one until the moment being responsible meant refusing them something, and then to be the problem. I'm not the problem. I was in an accident. I had 2 surgeries. I spent 8 months rebuilding the function in my hand. I received compensation for what happened to me, and I protected it. And when my own mother tried to use a legal mechanism to take it from me, I had documentation and a good attorney and a recording made in a one-party consent state. The memo line thing, I know people love that kind of detail. The sharp ending, the perfect comeback. I don't have one of those. What I have is less cinematic but maybe more useful. I had a plan before they made their move. That's it. That's the whole thing. If you're in a situation where you feel pressure coming from people who are supposed to love you, pressure that has a financial texture, that involves your recovery or your vulnerability or your sense of obligation, please talk to an attorney before you say yes to anything. One conversation. That's all it was, for me. Patricia asked me one question. I sat with it too long, and she understood what that silence meant. I'm telling this story because someone is going to recognize it. Not the exact details, the wrist, the settlement, the pot roast, but the texture of it, the Sunday dinner with the folder already in the chair, the mother who calls it a family matter, the father who keeps the peace until peacekeeping becomes a kind of abandonment, the brother who is always almost there. Someone is going to recognize it, and I want them to know you're allowed to record things. You're allowed to open a separate account. You're allowed to call an attorney before you call your mother back. You're allowed to leave the table. I left the table. I'm still leaving in some ways, still figuring out what my family looks like now, who I keep, and in what form, how much access I allow to people who have shown me their priorities. It's not a keen resolution. Real ones rarely are. But the money is mine, my wrist works, and I know now, with a clarity I didn't have before February of last year, exactly who showed up and who didn't. That's worth something. Not $114,000, but something. Drop a comment and let me know, where are you watching from right now, and what time is it where you are? I read every single one. There's something I keep coming back to, even now. Not the hearing, not the judge's ruling, not even the folder my mother had tucked into that chair before I walked through the door. What I keep coming back to is the question Patricia asked me in her office, the one I couldn't answer quickly enough. Is there anyone in your life who might see this money as an opportunity? I paused too long, and in that pause was everything. I think about that a lot. How much we already know that we haven't let ourselves say out loud yet. I knew something was coming before my mother called to invite me to dinner. I knew it in the way she said celebrate, a word that in her mouth has never meant what it means in the dictionary. I knew it the way you know weather before the sky changes. And I almost talked myself out of that knowing. Almost told myself I was being uncharitable, paranoid, a bad daughter for assuming the worst. I pressed record anyway. That decision, made in a car, alone, before I'd seen anything or heard anything, is the one I'm most proud of. Not because it saved me, though it did, but because it was the first time in my adult life I chose to trust what I already knew over what I wanted to believe. That's harder than it sounds. When the person you're protecting yourself from is your mother, every instinct you are raised with tells you that protection is betrayal. It isn't. I understand that now in a way I couldn't have before February of last year. What happened to me, the accident, the recovery, the dinner, the petition, wasn't random cruelty. It followed a logic that had been in place my whole life. I was the reliable one, the one who handled things, the one who didn't need much. That role worked fine for everyone until I had something worth taking. Then reliable became available. My recovery became evidence I didn't need what I'd earned. My competence became the argument against my own protection. That's how it works sometimes. The qualities that make you capable get used as justification for taking from you. The answer isn't to become less capable. The answer is to understand that capability without documentation is just vulnerability with a good reputation. Patricia knew that. I know it now. Leland is still Leland. My mother is still my mother. I don't say that with bitterness anymore. Mostly, I say it because I think the expectation that people fundamentally change after consequences is one we carry at our own expense. My father is trying. That matters, even when it isn't enough. I meet him where he is because that's what I can actually sustain, not the version I wished for. The money is in an account earning interest. My wrist works. I filed my taxes this year without asking anyone for help. If you take anything from what I've told you, let it be this. The most important thing you can do when something significant happens to you, good or bad, is slow down before you tell anyone. Not because your family can't be trusted. Maybe they can, but because you deserve the chance to think clearly, to talk to the right people, to understand what you have before anyone else starts explaining to you what it means. That window between the thing happening and the world finding out is yours. Use it. I did. That's the whole story, really. Everything else is just what happened because I did.